So Riot Games, you know, the publisher of League of Legends, is suing a relatively small-time esports org called Riot Squad for use of the word riot. Funny thing is, Riot Squad doesn't even have a League of Legends team. So what the fuck is actually going on here? All right, so the fine folks at Riot Games have filed a lawsuit in the Central District of California suing Riot Squad for essentially trademark infringement. Rather than paraphrasing the point, let me just quote the lawsuit directly here. Quote, Riot Squad Esports LLC, Riot Squad, has unfairly and unlawfully adopted and exploited the Riot brand name in connection with its marketing, advertising, and promotion. It references the Lanham Act, a 1946 law that basically outlines how and when trademark holders are entitled to federal legal judgment. Several pages later, the lawsuit goes even harder, saying, quote, in adopting and using the Riot Squad name, particularly in connection with the esports industry with which Riot has become synonymous, Riot Squad knew of Riot's brand and the goodwill associated therein and intended to appropriate and trade off that brand and its goodwill. Riot Squad intentionally used the Riot marks to confuse and mislead consumers into believing that its esports organization either is Riot or is associated with, affiliated with, or sponsored by Riot. End quote. Now, it might be worth noting at this juncture that Riot Squad doesn't actually have a League of Legends team. They do PUBG, they do Rainbow Six, and they also have a CSGO team with a few familiar names on the roster, at least if you follow NA CSGO.
Ganji just barely avoids him. In fact, he turns around and finds the frag. This looks like it will go the way of Riot Squad. In fact, it will.
Now, a pretty big chunk of the middle of this lawsuit is explaining basically how much of a big deal League of Legends is, and outlines what seems to be every single use of the word and the mark Riot in League of Legends. The complaint then tries to claim that Riot Games, and in fact just the word Riot when it comes to esports, has developed, quote, an enormous amount of goodwill among consumers and members of the public who associate Riot synonymously not only with LoL, but with esports as a whole, end quote. The lawsuit also takes aim at Riot Squad's merch, in which they often drop the squad and just print Riot in big letters. Basically, if you're not on the same page yet, this lawsuit is trying to claim that Riot Squad, the unaffiliated esports organization, is trying to ride off the coattails and make a buck off of the name of Riot Games, the publisher of League of Legends. To hit it home even farther, the lawsuit says, quote, defendants' wrongful conduct has permitted or will permit them to make substantial sales and profits on the strengths of Riot's marketing, advertising, sales, and consumer recognition, end quote. So what are they actually suing for? Well, obviously, one of the things they want is for Riot Squad to stop using the word riot. They also want Riot Squad to, quote, deliver up for destruction all products that allegedly infringe on Riot's trademark. They also want all applicable legal fees, tons of punitive damages, and 3 times the profits that Riot Squad has made, which, no offense, I can't imagine has been that much. No, really, if you don't believe me, quote, Riot seeks an accounting of defendants' profits and requests that the court grant Riot 3 times that amount, end quote. Now, when it comes to the core contention of this lawsuit, that Riot Squad is sort of intentionally misleading members of the public and riding off the coattails of the Riot Games name, my first reaction is that it didn't pass a common sense test. I mean, look, I haven't passed the bar or anything, and no disrespect to Riot Squad, but who is confusing this minor esports team with the publisher of League of Legends? I mean, just look at the Riot Squad logo, it's so edgy. I guess maybe it looks like Urgot a little. Like, imagine if you were $1 million investor. You're at the top of a skyscraper in your boardroom, your chief of marketing walks in and he's like, yo, should we invest in Riot Squad? And you're like, is that like Riot Games, the publisher of League of Legends and runner of the franchise League of Legends leagues? And he's like, I don't know, who cares? Probably not gonna happen, right? However, all that being said, that doesn't mean that this action by Riot isn't totally understandable from a legal perspective. After all, let's be honest here, there's a lot about trademark law in the US that doesn't pass at least my personal common sense test. I spoke with our resident lawyer here at theScore, who you can probably see behind me right now actually, and he clued me into the fact that sometimes companies need to challenge or be litigious about marks that are similar to theirs in their own space to set a precedent. That way, if like a year from now, a esports company comes up called Games Riot or something, and Riot Games can sue them and point to a history of protecting their brand. They can say, hey, remember a year ago with Riot Squad? Well, we wouldn't let them into the space with their name. We're certainly not letting you. It could actually make a difference in a legal fight. You know, Riot Games actually is very active in the old Patent and Trademark Office of the United States. They have a ton of either approved or pending trademarks. Multiple pages of them, in fact. Trademarks like Rotor Riot, Riot Forge, Legends of Runeterra, True Damage, Riot Tabletop, Cash Riot, Enerjo, Apuratech, Lee Sin, The Tribunal, Quiet Riot? What? That's gotta be a mistake. Yasuo, Tryndamere. Now, how would you guys like to hear some approved or pending trademarks in the United States Patent and Trademark Office that uses the word Riot but isn't Riot Games? You would? Great. How about Hollywood Riot, Library Riot, Fruit Riot, Beer Riot, Sun City Riot, Riot Kayaks, Riot Films, Riot Box, Riot's Reptiles, Ceramic Riot, Mark Riot, Snack Riot, Rebel Riot, Riot Chic, Beach Riot, Wink and Riot? Pizza Riot, that's a good one. Run Riot, Cash Riot, Riot Swag, hell yeah.